5 and verse 8. Psalms chapter 3, verse 2 through 5 and verse 8. It reads, Many there be which say of my soul, there is no help for him in God. But thou, O Lord, art a shield for me, my glory and the lifter of my head. I cry unto the Lord with my voice, and he heard me out of his holy hill. And he laid me down, and I slept and awake, for the Lord sustained me. Eighth and last, salvation belong unto the Lord. Thy blessing is upon thy people. The church is now called to worship.
Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise him, all creatures here below. Praise him above the heavenly hosts. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
And now, Holy Father, we come into your house to worship and to adore your name. We pray for divine intervention and the mingling of your Spirit among us today. In Jesus' name.
Our affirmation of faith is taken from Revelation 14:6 through 12. It will be on the screen and on the infold of your bulletin. Again, it is Revelation 14:6 through 12. Let us begin. And I saw another angel flying in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. And worship him that made heaven and the earth, and the sea and the fountains of waters. And there followed another angel, saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of fornication. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascended up forever and ever, and they have no rest nor day or night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Our hymn of praise is hymn number 27, Rejoice He Pure in Heart.
Rejoice, ye pure in heart. Rejoice, lift hands and sing. Your festal banner wave on high, the cross of Christ your King. Rejoice, rejoice. gladness and in woe. Rejoice, 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 give thanks and sing. Praise him who reigns on high, the Lord whom we adore, the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, one God forevermore. Rejoice, 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 give thanks and sing.
Our scripture reading is taken from Daniel 3, reading from verse 1 to 8. I'll give you time to turn your pages. Daniel 3, verse 1 through 8. I'll read. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes, the governor, and the captain, the judges, the treasurer, the counselor, the sheriff, and all the rulers of the province to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Then the princes, the governor, and the captain, the judges, the treasurer, the counselor, the sheriff, and all the rulers of the province were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. They stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then an herald cried aloud, "To you it is command, O people, nation, and language, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kind of music, he fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And whoso falleth not down and worship the same hour be cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and all kind of music, all the people, the nation, and the language fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. 8 and last. Wherefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Jews. This is the word of God.
Amen.
At the end of the interlude, for those who want to come up for prayer, can do so.
Come ye disconsolate, weary language, come to the mercy seat, fervent
our Father, our God, Creator and Sustainer, as we draw nearer to your coming, may we give of our hearts to you on an hourly basis, because we know not the hour, but we know for sure that your coming is near. We're thankful to you that you have brought us into your courts this morning, just to praise your holy name. You have taken us through a week of toil and labor, and you brought us here today, and we're most thankful to you. There are many others who started this week and are not in the land of the living today. And so how could we not praise your holy name this morning? And so we want to lift you up again, because you are our creator, you are our sustainer, and you are the good God who gives us life. And so, Lord, we're thankful to you. We praise you this morning because you have sent us the sunshine and the rain, and you have allowed it to fall on the just and on the unjust. And so you're a God of mercy and you're a God of grace. And hence we just lift up your mighty name this morning. Today we are placing before you ourselves. We ask for your cleansing, and we ask that you will be merciful unto us. And just like how you gave Nebuchadnezzar 4 chances that his mind would be made up, calling you Lord of Lords and King of Kings, help us that we too will put our homes in order, that when that day comes, we can be assured that we will be there. But until then, Lord, we ask that you will keep us, and you will help us to turn our sinful ways over to you, so that our sins can be forgiven. And so as we kneel this morning, we pray and ask that you will be with each one who is kneeling here. We know not what is in our hearts, but we know that you can cleanse each heart, and you can make it as white as snow. For those who are at the altar, we're asking for your special healing. We have visitors coming up alike as members. We do not know all their names, but for one, we're thanking you that Brother King is here this morning. We're thankful to you. And we ask, Lord, that he will never leave the same today, but he will come always giving you thanks and praise. For all the other members who are at this altar this morning, you know of their individual needs, and so we're asking you to carve out and do for them what human beings cannot do. Make them whole for those who are sick, for those who are jobless, for those who are seeking assistance and other help. May you comfort them today, knowing that when they rise from their knees, that their hearts will be filled with your love, and they can come to know you. There are sick ones on our sick lists. We ask that you will be with each one. Brother Nemhard is in the hospital at West Side. We pray that you will visit with him right now, and that you will comfort him in his time of needs. And in his pain, Lord, help him to lift his eyes heavenward, so that we know that you're there with him. Bless the others that are at home. Keep them safe. Help them that whenever there's no one else around, you are there with them. And Lord, we just want to give you praise, because you look into our every single needs. But there are those of us who will not go out and steal or lie or do anything, but there's envy and other little things in us that will keep us apart from you. And so we are asking you to remove anything that is within our lives that will not be in accordance with your word, and that you will keep us safe. We are placing our speaker and his family before you this morning. Elder Graham will be the one breaking the word with us. We see he's coming from the book of Daniel, And we see influences of when one come to know you, how they can praise your name. And so we want to lift him up this morning. And we pray and ask that when he delivers to us through you, our hearts will be blessed and our walk with you will be closer than ever. So we ask for your special blessing. For those of our members who are away at the women's retreat, we pray that you will guide them, teach them your ways, and bring them back home safely. For all of us that are here, Lord, we just ask for a special blessing, and that your hand of mercy will always be with us. Grant us your peace today, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Oh, thou hearest every heart's prayer. With thy rich pleasure, all our hearts prepare. Thou art our light, thou art our love and life. Oh, may this adore with him be bright. Amen.
Music plays a very integral part of our worship. There is wonderful music in heaven, and so God also is giving us a taste here on earth. And we're practicing that when we get there, we'll be a part of one big Jubilee choir. What do you say? But until then, our worshiping song will be coming to us by Sister D. Hopwood.
Amen.
The best I have to offer you so seldom seems enough for all the honor you adore. May words don't measure up. My efforts are so feeble, Lord, but I'll keep searching for new ways to say I love you, 'cause you're worthy of more. You're worthy of more than words can say. You're worthy of more than even my highest praise. But the best that I can do is simply worship you. But I know, Lord, you are worthy of more. The praise I offered yesterday seems so hollow now. My heart longs to exalt your name, but I'm still learning how. I know you delight in every simple song you hear. For when I praise your name, I somehow sense you drawing near. You're worthy of more than words can say. You're worthy of more than even my highest praise. But the best that I can do is to simply worship you. But I know, Lord, you are worthy of more. If I sang 1,000 songs of praise, lifting high your holy name, declaring you are King of kings and Lord of lords, before I could even start, I would know within my heart that you are worthy of more. You're worthy of more than words can say. You're worthy of more than even my highest praise. But the best that I can do is to simply worship you. But I know, Lord, you are worthy, Lord. You are worthy, Lord. You are worthy of more.
Truly, God is worthy of more. And because He's worthy of more, then we have to play our part in building a proper sanctuary here. What do you say? It is now time for the Children's Corner, and the children have been doing a wonderful job of helping us to reach that goal. So they will come in around with their baskets in hand, and we'll give our contributions to the building of God's temple.
See master's plan. Sunrise, 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 see the dollars fall. They are all for Jesus. Will you join the cause? See those dollars dropping, watch them as they fall. They belong to Jesus, building up his cause. Sunrise, 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 see those dollars fall. They are all for Jesus. Will you join the cause? See those little builders, let none pass by you. They are happy builders in the master's plan. Sunrise, 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 see the dollars fall. They are all for Jesus. Will you join the cause? See the dollars dropping, watch them as they fall. They belong to Jesus, building up his cause. Sunrise, 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 see the dollars fall. They are all for Jesus. Will you join the cause? Good morning, boys and girls. Did you have a good week this week? No, your hello is not sounding strong. Good morning, boys and girls. Today, our story is entitled Crystal's Courage. Crystal was very bright. In fact, if grades meant anything, Crystal was the brightest student in her class. One day, Crystal was startled by words spoken by her teacher, Mr. Campbell. "You've gotten too used to getting good grades," the teacher said harshly. Crystal, "Well, let me tell you something. I'm going to do all that I can to fix that problem." Stunned, Crystal tried to figure out why Mr. Campbell was being so unkind to her. One of the few Christians in her public school, Crystal wondered if her faith had something to do with Mr. Campbell's attitude. As the weeks went by, Mr. Campbell continued to make life difficult for Crystal. One day in class, the topic turned to how life came to be. Most of her classmates seemed to believe in evolution. One said he believed in creation, but the 6 days mentioned in the Bible had to actually be millions of years. Finally, Crystal spoke up. "I believe what the Bible says about creation," she said. "It says in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is." "Wait," Mr. Campbell rudely interrupted. "Are you trying to tell us you actually believe that nonsense?" "Yes," Crystal replied. "If God is who he says he is, why couldn't he create the world in 6 days? Why would he need millions of years? Just because we can't understand that kind of power doesn't mean it doesn't exist." "That's crazy talk," Mr. Campbell said with a sneer. "What about the dinosaurs? What happened to them?" he asked. When Crystal explained her belief in Noah's flood, Mr. Campbell threw back his head and laughed. You really believe that? How stupid can you get? Something evil seemed to come over Mr. Campbell just then. He rushed into the school hallway. Spotting a couple of teachers and a group of students, he shouted, "You have to come in here and listen to what Crystal believes." Soon the room was filled with teachers and students all making fun of Crystal. Despite all the trouble Mr. Campbell kept causing, Crystal's grades remained better than anyone else's. This meant she would be giving a speech the last weekend of school. One day, the principal called her aside. "Now, Crystal, I know you're a Christian, but you can't include a prayer in your speech. It's against the law." But Crystal knew that wasn't true. "No, Mr. Sheffield, the law says I can have a prayer as long as school officials don't tell us what to say." The principal knew he was defeated. When the day of the speech came, Crystal walked to the podium and bowed her head and prayed. After saying amen, she went on to give a powerful talk. Later, Crystal was congratulated by family, friends, classmates, and others. How thankful she was that the God who created her had helped her to stay strong for him. And the memory gem for today, boys and girls, says, it's taken from 1 Peter 2, verse 9. "But you're a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, his own special people, that you may proclaim the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light." Boys and girls, like Crystal, and like the Hebrew boys and Daniel, when you go to school this week and for the rest of your life, I want you to stand up for what you believe in. It's not what man says, but what who says? God. So once you know what you believe in, I want you to go with that conviction and share with others what God has done for you, and you will tell them who God is. I want a boy and a girl to pray for me. Which boy wants to pray? I see girls' hands going up. My boys don't always pray. You are going to pray for me this morning? Okay. Boys and girls, clasp your hands, close your eyes.
Dear Jesus, thank you for prayer. Help us to be good boys and girls. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for everything you've done for us. Thank you for waking us all up this morning. Thank you for bringing us here to worship you. Dear Lord, please help us to do the right thing always. Please forgive us of our sins and cleanse us of all unrighteousness. Dear Lord, help us all to be like Crystal, no matter how many people are making fun of us and how many people don't want us to succeed, always to believe in you and to use our faith to help us, to bring us through everything. And in the end, all things will come out for good. Please help everybody here to meet you in the kingdom. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Heavenly Father, thank you for the offering that has been collected. May it go to the furtherance of your cause. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Boys and girls stand. Girls first, boys after.
Beams of heaven below. Guide my feet in peaceful ways. Turn my midnights into days. When in the darkness I would grow, faith always sees a star of hope, and through life's toils, grief and dangers, I shall get home someday. I do not know how long 'twill be, or what the future holds for me, but this I know: if Jesus leads me, I shall get home someday. Oftentimes my sky is clear, joys abound without a tear, though a day so bright begun, clouds may hide tomorrow's sun. There'll be a day that is always bright, a day that never yields to night, and in this light, the streets of glory I shall behold someday. I do not know how long 'twill be, or what the future holds for me, but this I know: if Jesus leads me, I shall get home someday. I do not know how long 'twill be, or what the future holds for me, but this I know: if Jesus leads me, I shall get home someday. Beams of heaven as I go through the wilderness below, guide my feet in peace.
Well, church, it has come to that time of the day when the message will be given to us by the messenger. When you follow into your bulletin, all the members of the rostrum is as follows. Sitting directly behind me in the speaker's chair is none other than Elder Noel Graham. his family is extensive in Sunrise. And God has seen it fit to bless him with another little niece. So Uncle Noel is an uncle to many. He is the kind of elder that is an elder's elder. You see, I'm an elder in training, and I look up to Elder Graham. He's a mentor to me. He's always apt to teach and to instruct. And he has brought me with him on several occasions so I can garner a certain amount of experience, and I'm thankful. What I can say about Elder Graham surely is this. He's a man of God that is about God's business. Whether it be out in the streets with Bible studies, whether it was for many years here, or every Tuesday night Bible studies, he was always willing to give of himself for the people of God to be educated about the Word of God, because he knows very well this, that if we do not know what we believe, we cannot stand. And as he's about to bring something from the book of Daniel, it already precludes me to believe that we ought to individualize this sermon in terms of making our stand. Before Elder Graham presents the Word of God, we ask you to breathe a word of prayer for him and for his family. I heard that the Fiddler's family is doing well, the newborn is doing well. But just before he speaks, we'll hear the song of meditation from Sister D. Hopwood.
I put my life into your hands. I'll rest in you alone. My only hope is in your love. Lord, I'm yours, I'm not my own. Keep me safe, keep me true. All I want to live for is to live for you. My earnest prayer each day is, Lord, please have your way in me, in me. Through every storm along life's way, and the battles I go through, I'll trust you, Lord, to keep me strong, so my life will honor you. Keep me safe, keep me true. All I want to live for is to live have your way in me. In me. My earnest prayer each day is, Lord, please have your way in me, in me. Lord, keep me safe, keep me true. All I want to live for is to live for you. My earnest prayer each day is, Lord, please have your way in me. Lord, keep me safe, keep me true. All I want to live for is to live for you. My earnest prayer each day is, Lord, please have your way in me. In me. Lord, have your own way in me.
Good afternoon, church, and another happy Sabbath. And I'm asking that we just pray for the missing woman. They gone away on this woman's retreat. I'm looking for Elder McIntosh, and I wonder if he gone too. But I don't see him. maybe he's one of the driver, you know. Huh? He's here? Okay. You know, I don't know why you sit down there. I thought you would be up here, Pastor, because I don't want you to be looking at me. Anyway, church, it is a wonderful day, and it's a privilege. And if you notice, my mom hadn't been here for 2 weeks, include today. And whenever she's not at church, you know, she really don't feel up to it. But in a few weeks, she will be 94, and she's holding on. My wife's not here today, too, because she's feeling sick. So I told her to watch me at home. The thought is that everybody is anticipating a sermon from Daniel. Is that true? All right. Anyway. You know, just before I really pray and begin, this church that we belong to is a universal church. And we have to anticipate all that is happening now, because the Bible said it will happen. What we need to do is not to allow ourselves to get caught up in the ungodly happenings. For God's church at all times struggle with unbelief and unrighteous members. I want to first of all thank Sister Hapwood for her songs. And we have to learn how to lean on Jesus. You know, we have to. And last week I was looking everywhere and couldn't find Brother Randall after I heard that he would be here. And now I see him. Good to see you, Brother Randall. It means the days of miracle are not over. And God is still in the healing business. I understand me. Let's say this, church. Sunrise is a unique church in the Adventist circle. And I am surprised that some of the ranking officials of other churches scoff at Sunrise. And even when I go among them and they learn that I'm from Sunrise, they always have some sarcastic statement or remarks to make. And I looked at them in the eye, and many times, you do not know, but sometimes, I'm invited to some special meeting of the conference, and then I find it so hard to associate. I really do. So in many, sometimes when they're dispersed, I'm by myself because I just don't feel to associate with those type of innuendos and sarcasm. But guess what? There's never a moment when I'm not proud to be a member of Sunrise Seventh-day Adventist Church, irrespective of who. Therefore, I am encouraging us as members here to hold on. The struggle is hard. The journey is rough, but it is soon to over. Don't discard your springs and your shock absorber, even if they're rattling. Call on Jesus, lean on him, and let him put the rubber where it is needed in your shocks so that you can ride the storm with Jesus, because there is a serious storm blowing, and if you're not ready, you will shake out or blow out. Just this week, the scientific world is put to silence, for they said Florida cannot experience earthquake. You never hear that. But have you seen the thousands who forget elevator and was running downstairs, some from the 19th story? One man said when he sat at his desk and noticed the computer moving, he was wondering if something wrong with him. But when he go over and touched the glass was shaking too. So he looked and he saw people running, so he says, nothing is wrong with me, so he started to run too. So God in his wisdom put that argument to shame. because Miami shakes. And it is funny that the earthquake is in the Caribbean and it passed Key West and come to Miami. Just some food for thought. So we serve a God who never changes. And we're going to go into that in a little bit. Thank you, Pastor, for the privilege. I told you that I didn't want an appointment, but you still do it. And so today, I'm going to, under God, do the best through him. Bow your heads with me as we pray. Holy Father, I come now to stand before your people. But first I pray for the courage to stand before and for thee. Open my lips and my mind so that the words I speak today will not be mine but thine. And open the hearts of your people and help us to listen. In Jesus' name, amen. I have the book Great Controversy with me because I'm going to use much of it today. The three Hebrew boys on the plain of Dura could not be saved without the furnace. Hello? I want you to understand what I'm saying. God could not save them until they were ready to go in the fiery furnace. One writer suggests that to keep the public eyes from them, when the king gave the command to bow, they could pretend like they're tying their lace so as to keep eyes off them. But they stood erect amid the command to bow. They did not pretend to get favor. Their whole being was set on God. Not the God that Nebuchadnezzar served. You see, I went home and do some research. And during that time, Babylon was considered the religious capital of the world. The little city, just a little bigger than Kingston, Jamaica. This Kingston is 10 square miles, this was 11. Right? It has 53 temples and 955 small sanctuaries and 384 street altars. So everywhere you turn in Babylon, you could find a shrine or something somewhere to worship. But with all these numbers of sanctuaries and shrines and sanctuary and temple and altars, none give praise to Jehovah. And when I look into our church worship services today, it seems like we have adopted the Babylonian form of worship, and we bring them to the altar and ask our people to bow, for this is the norm. But as I stand here today, I can tell you it is not. Not by the standard of God. God is a God of order. And we must understand that he changed not. For you see, if we serve a God who keeps changing, then whatever is happening in our worship services around Adventism, then it's right. But the God that I know of, the God that I serve, is the same of yesterday, today, and forever. He is unchanging, for had he not been an unchanging God, then there would be no principle for humanity to go by. If he was an unchanging God, then there could not be a Lucifer. If the God we serve were a changeable God, then sin would not exist. Do you understand? God's law would have no foundation. I forget last year, but this year I will be listening to see how many new laws Florida Senate add to the already existing laws of the state. I want you to understand, brethren, that every year there is reason to review past laws and to see where they have not so strongly standing. And sometimes, if you have the time, go to Tallahassee the day before the Senate meets. They call it Shadow Day. And see how they operate up there. I've been there more than once. But you know something? God gives 10 commandments. And from the day he spoke them, they remain the same. They stood fast to this day and still stand firm. I am God. I change not. Who am I? You see, some of us in the church and really don't know who we are. We wonder at times if what I'm doing, is this the right thing or not? Is this the right way to worship or not? Some even start to question the Sabbath hours now. I never do. Maybe you need to give me that handheld. I never used to do this before. And for those of us from the West Indies, especially the Jamaicans, there were certain sacred things that we would never do on the Sabbath. Now, you can always hate me Jamaican. I am Jamaican too. I can't be more. But when we come to the United States, we change. And we find all kind of reason to criticize the Caribbean because we didn't have enough light. Now we're doing something that fits with the American lifestyle. And we change. We serve an unchanging God. The 3 Hebrew boys on the plain of Dura stood for what they learned before they were captured. They knew God in Israel before they were on the shores of Babylon. And irrespective of the positions that they hold in Babylon, the plain of Dura did not change them. On the plain of Dura, they stood firm for God. They stood on the same basic principle that their parents taught them while they were in Israel. They stood by the principle that they learned in church in Israel. They looked to God irrespective of the position they now hold in a strange land. It was the same group who, while journeying to Israel, to Babylon, that they stopped to rest by the river of what? Babylon. And the Babylonian who believed that because we were able to capture you who claim to believe in Jehovah, our God is greater than yours. So while they sat there, they did not leave their harp, no drum. They request one of the Lord's song, and the request came with mockery. So the children of Israel said, listen, we rather hang our harps on these oaks or willows rather than to strike one note in a strange land. How many of us would start to sing just to get favor? Who am I? Is the subject we are on. Because even many of us as adults compromises the principle of the Bible to get favor. And it's wrong. You know, the late C.D. Brooks, he gave an allegory in the form of an illustration. I don't know how many of you remember C.D. Brooks. He was one of my favorite. You know, C.D. Brooks. Some years ago, when he was in Montego Bay for 9 weeks, I listened to that man. He preached so much that the Catholic Church sent a letter to the West Jamaica Conference asking if they could finish the meeting because they were losing too much members. Those of you who remember those days of the 70s, you don't remember that. When we have in baptism and Sabbaths, I remember there were one Sabbath there were 9 Blue Danube bus full of candidates. But let me tell you something. He gave a little illustration in the form of an allegory. He says, here is a mother with a son. He grew up in the church, and he spent all his life in church. But as the years get by, he was very frivolous with his faith. and it happens that the boy died. And now he says, Jesus comes. And the saints are resurrected. And he was not in that resurrection. The 1,000 years passed, and now he's resurrected. And when he resurrected, he thought he was in the first. But when he looked around him, he saw suffering and misery. And he takes another look, and he saw the New Jerusalem, and inside the walls he saw his mom. And she was very happy. And he called out to her and says, "Ma, why aren't you crying for me?" His mother responds, "Son, I have been with Jesus, and he have wiped all my tears away. I cannot cry for you anymore." Young people, I'm appealing to you. Don't leave the church. Because the things of the world is attractive. If you stay in the church, God will give you those things if it is right for your eternal salvation. But do not leave the church for them, neither go after them and bring them with you in church. You will lose your soul. This was the case with this young man. Because though he stayed in the church until he died, the church was not in him. That's how he gave this story. We have to learn to trust God. Put our trust in him. Hold on to him. Daniel chapter 3, 1 to 8, it says that Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold whose height was 80 cubits and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it upon the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent together the princesses, the governors, and the captains, and the judges, and the treasurers, and the counselors, and the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Verse says, then the princes, the governors, and captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together unto the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And they stood before the image that, you notice how often the king's name mentioned? That Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Nebuchadnezzar, king, ruler, God, he claimed. Then an herald cried aloud, to you it is commanded, underline the word commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. Listen, verse 6. Whoso falleth not down and worship shall that same hour be cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, the word therefore at that time, all the people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and all kinds of what? What should they do? Come on, read it. And fell down and what? Worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Wherefore at that time certain Chaldeans came near. Come on. And accused the Jews. You could say accuse the Adventists. Let me say this to you. If you are faithful, people watch you. They're looking for that little niche where you will lower your guard. And on the plain of Dura, this was the same thing. They know Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So here is all the representatives and the officials of the then world. For Babylon was the center of the then world. King Nebuchadnezzar was the world ruler. And he decided to make this image of gold, 90 feet tall by 6 feet wide. 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide. Thank you for the correction. For you see, a cubit is 18 inches. Okay? Bear that in mind. Don't follow those who say it's 14. It's not. And so they represent every facet of the world, because King Nebuchadnezzar was the ruler. So he sends out, and in there he says, no, I want also the sheriffs. Do you know that the time is coming, according to Revelation 13, when you will be asked to compromise your faith for favor? Are you planning to accept the mark so that you can buy and sell? Or will you trust God to provide for you? I'm not going to repeat the story of our pastor some years ago in 96 in Romania. It was the cat that bring his food from the warden house and fed him. So here was 3 faithful boys. And again, I am going to refer to C.D. Brooks, as he says, you know, when this was happening, the furnace was there because they built the image on Dura. The furnace was there that melts the gold and prepare it. The furnace's days were over because the image was completed. But now there might be some dissension. There might be someone who do not want to worship my image. So keep the flame alive, so there can be some fear from the flames. And here are 3 boys. Come on. The king of the world, not talking about God now, make a decree. And he send and call all the world's representatives to come. And three little Hebrews going to stand and defy the king's command? I will have to make an example of them, so that when this worship service is over, nobody will think not to worship the image that I, Nebuchadnezzar, have set up. So his conspirators ran to him. You know, those of us who love to carry news, we need to be careful of how we watch people. Because sometimes the only way we know how to watch people is because we are doing the same thing they're doing. Listen, King. These 3 Hebrews that you set up, give them all kind of position. Do you know they don't bow to your image or worship your God? What? So he was willing to give them another chance. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Is it true what I'm hearing? Yes, King. It's true. Listen, I'm trying to cut this story short. I'm going to give you another chance. So when you hear the different music and the verses, they're all kind of music. If you fall down and worship, then it's okay. If not, I will throw you in the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Listen, me, King. We are not careful to answer how God will deliver. One thing we are telling you, don't bother to play the music because we will not bow. Don't play the music. We will not bow. Listen, church. You who are selling your soul for eternal damnation, stop listening to the music. You who are compromising the integrity of your soul for favor, stop compromising. Stand up. Well, we're not able to tell you. No. You see, God could not provide for our pastor who the Romanian government put in prison because he would not denounce the Bible. God allowed them to arrest him, to put him in their jail, to feed him, and then determine that they're going to starve him till he changed his mind. But it says that afternoon, when the warden says, now, let's see if you won't recant, his last word to the warden, God promised that my bread and water will be sure. And from that day, during the 4 days that they said they would starve him, that afternoon when it was dinner time, the pastor said he heard the sound of a cat. And when he looked up at the little bar space up on the prison wall, the cat had some slices of bread in its mouth. The cat pushed the bread through the bars and let it go, and he catch it. And every day for 4 days, the cat bring him his 3 square meals. Nobody in the prison visit him to give him anything, but in the end of the 4th day, the warden show up and noticed that the man looked healthy and everything was all right with him. He asked him, what happened to you? Because you should look emaciated and look bad. Our pastor says, God sent a cat and he fed me every day. The warden laughed, but it was dinner time. And the cat cried again, and the pastor walked over and dropped the bread. The warden looked in surprise. He says, that's my cat. And it's my bread. We've been missing the bread at home and could not know what was happening to it. So let me tell you something, church. When you stand for Jesus, the same people who will go against you, God is going to use them to feed you and give you favor. All that God wants you to do is to stand. This is not a time to give up. If there are visitors here from one of our other church and you compromise your leadership integrity for a position, give up the position and hold to God. Because the problem in our churches today is not the pastor, but it is the wishy local leadership. We need to stand. Oh, I've seen some elders who can't even pray. Let me say this to you. Probation is closing. I was at a church and I said, and every elder in the church that day defy me. Because they said, your probation can't close and you don't know. And they were elders. I'm going to close with a few thoughts. Because I don't want to weary you. The day is short. And I think about it, God says, unless I shorten those days, not even the elect will be saved. So I shortened them. So we get up this morning, sunrise and sunset, and it seemed like the clock of the same amount of hours, but under God's divine providence, there is a shorter day. So let us do something about that. I'm starting in 480 of Great Controversy, and it is the old one, so you should have it because all of my books are old. In the typical service, only those who had, and I'm reading from this second paragraph on page 480, and I'm going to be going. In the typical service, only those who had come before God with confession and repentance and whose sins through the blood of the sin offering were transferred to the sanctuary had a part in the service of the Day of Atonement. So in the great day of final atonement and investigative judgment, only the cases considered are those of the professed people of God. I want us to understand this. Right? Peter tells us in 1 Peter 4:17, it says, judgment must first begin at the house of God. And since it begins at us, what shall be the end of those who are not? So the judgment begins first. In Ezekiel, the Lord sent the angel with the writer's inkhorn, and he says, go to the sanctuary and put a mark upon those that cry and sigh at the abomination. Problem in the Adventist church today, we have not many who are crying and sighing at the abomination. They are laughing and dancing with the abomination. But thanks be to God, there is a few that is sighing and crying. And I'm asking those crying and sighing ones, stay the course. Though all around you seems to stay the course, because God is going to put a seal upon those people. God's church. The investigative judgment going on now in heaven are in only the people who would ever give their heart to Christ's name is in that list. God is not investigating the entire world. So if you are now a member of the church and you're living an hypocritical life, if God should call your name today and he sees the end from the beginning and know that you will not change your life before he said it is finished, then your final judgment is done. You come to church next week, You come to church next month, you come to church next year, you die in church, but you die hopelessly. People don't want to hear this. One church I went to, the pastor came out after we finished shaking hands, and he says the people ask me not to bring you back because you frighten them. Well, let me tell you something. I go to C.D. Brooks, late C.D. Brooks. C.D. Brooks says, listen, if I don't tell them about hell, I will not frighten hell out of them. But some of us are so cozy in hell, and we don't want anything else, because while I live a hellish life in the week, I come to church Sunday mornings, the Sabbath, and I sit and I listen and I say amen. But my amen have nothing to do. Don't bother me, people. You see, the book of life contains the names of all who have ever entered the service of God. Jesus bade his disciples, rejoice because your names are written in heaven, in Luke 10:20. Paul speaks of his faithful fellow workers whose name are in the book of life in Philippians 4 and verse 3. Listen, in the book of God's remembrance, every deed of righteousness is immortalized. There every temptation resisted, every evil overcome, every word of tender piety expressed in faith is faithfully chronicled. And every act of sacrifice, every suffering and sorrow endured for Christ's sake is recorded. Says the psalmist, thou tellest my wanderings. Put thou my tears into thy bottle. Are they not in thy book? Psalms 56:8. There is a record also of sins, of the sins of men. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing. You know, it's going to be surprising that those of us who in the church and you're lost, do you know that those are the ones who will be weeping and wailing and gnashing their teeth? Because when they slight all the opportunities that God had given them to repent and to correct their ways, and now they realize that they are lost. In the same book, Great Controversy, Ellen White said they will remember every statement, who made it, where they were, and verbatim they will remember it. And when they notice that they're lost, they will gnaw their teeth in anguish for not making it right during those times. Beginning with those who first lived upon the earth, our advocate present the cases of every successive generation and close with the living. Every name is mentioned, every case closely investigated. Names are accepted, names rejected. When any have sins remaining up on the books of record, unrepented of and unforgiven, their names will be blotted out of the book of life, and the record of their good deeds will be erased from the book of God's remembrance. The Lord declared to Moses, whosoever had sinned against me, him will I blot out of my book, in Exodus 32:33. And says the prophet Ezekiel, when the righteous turneth away from his righteousness and commit iniquity, all his righteousness that he had done shall not be remembered. The story told, and I'm closing now. The little old Christian man, you heard about him, he went to the doctor and he was reading the magazine about God, goodness, and God willingness to forgive his sin. and to cast it in the depths of the sea. And he shouted, hallelujah, glory to God. The doctor was disturbed and came out and asked him what happened. He says, listen to me, doctor, I'm sitting here waiting and I'm reading this book and he tells me that God is going to cast away my sin and throw them in the depths of the sea and remember them no more. And if he's going to do that for me, glory to God, hallelujah, praise God. The doctor grabbed the book from him and gave him a book on science. And says, read this. But no sooner than the man began to read, it was telling him about the different depths of the oceans in different places. And one part, it says the ocean is some 7 miles deep. And he shouted hallelujah. And the doctor again and came out and says, what you see in it now? He says, the first book tells me that God is going to forgive my sin and cast them in the depths of the sea. This one tells me that the sea is 7 miles deep. And doctor, if the God is going to cast my sin 7 miles deep, why shouldn't I praise him? Glory! Hallelujah. And he praised God. What in your life that you can't see to praise God for? What? Who am I? Am I a true Seventh-day Adventist or just a member of the church? Who am I? Am I God's true representative or just a number? Who am I? Am I serving God in spirit and in truth? Who am I? Is God first and last in my life? Who am I? Am I willing to give up my faith for favor? I don't know about you, but I'm not boasting. I told you this times and again. You know, all the jobs I have since I've been here, there are not one that the Sabbath don't comes up. And there were never one when I told them, keep your job so that I can keep my Sabbath. And every time I get the job. Every time. Every time. Even the one I'm in now. I understand, Brother Lewis, how they promote these boys. Because in my personal experience, I learned that when I stood for the right and let the people know I am a Sabbath keeper, I will not attend to your business on no Saturday. When they can't understand, I says, I'm a Jew. And I always get this job. The one I'm in now, I want to leave, and every time they find reason for me not to leave. I should have been out of there 6 months ago. They said, listen, just stay. We will get more people. You can sit down. Just tell them what to do. Do another year. Hello, brethren? Oh, you think I'm kidding? They haven't work on weekends, and they come to me Friday evening, ask me what I must do. I said, I can't tell you. And I won't tell you. So go to the district boss and get your assignment. Because I can't tell you what to do when I am in church. So if I am going to tell you what to do tomorrow, I am breaking my Sabbath. So I can't give you instruction what to do. Go to the boss who is above me, because I won't tell you what to do tomorrow. Maybe they're listening. I don't care, but it's the truth. I never one Friday evening give them instruction what to do on Sabbath. And when I show up Monday, it seems like I'm king. You see, God looked out for his people. And God can only look out for you when you are willing to go to the flames. Because God looked out so much for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that when they tied them together, I imagine the council of heaven is meeting. This is urgent. Each of them have an angel that's assigned to them. But the council of heaven is meeting, and the order seems to be urgent. Now, is the angel for Shadrach and deliver him? No. The angel for Michel? No. Or which one of them? None of the angels assigned to them can deliver them. And look at the counsel of God. And here, when all this is going on, and Nebuchadnezzar looked, he saw a fourth man. What crawling down out his chair, calling his advisors. Did not we cast 3 men bound in the midst of the burning fiery furnace? How is it that now I saw 4 and the fourth one looked like the Son of God? Only him saw Jesus. Nobody else. But Jesus could not deliver them standing outside of the flame. Jesus could only deliver them when they were in the flame. So look here. My Jesus was there before. And when they cast him, he released their ties. And 4 people, just have a little talk with Jesus. Tell him all about your troubles. He will hear your earnest prayer. And he will answer by and by. Just keep that little flame burning. Jesus had to come. Jesus showed up in the Romanian jail. Jesus showed up for his people when we stand. And listen, sometimes Jesus can only show up for us when we die. So either way, it is well. Either way, he showed up. For some of us, it is only in death that he can preserve our soul for eternal salvation. And today, saints, if there are any member in this congregation today, who saying, no, Lord, I am going to stand firm for you, irrespective of the odd. What I did yesterday, I don't want to do that anymore. Give me the strength, Lord, to stand for you now and stay standing. I want you to stand to your feet. Because you see, God is in the business of salvaging. God gave Nebuchadnezzar 4 chances. But at the 4th one, he acknowledges God. Now, is there anyone in here today who never heard this before and you want to say, I want to just give my heart to Jesus and serve him in spirit and in truth, but I need your prayer? Will you hold up your hand if there is such one? Church, let yesterday pass and gone. Today is right here. We only know about now. Let us purpose to truly serve God in spirit and in truth. And I think I see Sister Maitland. Welcome back. God wants to take every one of us to his eternal kingdom. But only when we stand, and don't give up. Pastor, will you please pray this prayer, and then we'll have the closing song.
Let us pray. My faith has found a resting place, not in a man-made creed. I need no other evidence, for your word is true. This morning, dear Lord, we come in your presence. We thank you for your unvarnished, undiluted word. It was spoken with clarity through your servant, and your Holy Spirit has transmitted these words to our hearts. Help, dear Lord, that we will examine our lives and give diligence to making our calling and our election sure. Father, time is not on our side. The evidence is around us, all over, telling us that Jesus is about to come. Help us by your grace to be people of principle. May we adhere to your word, for you are a changeless God. So, Father, hear our prayers and administer your love and care to us. As we reach out to you, accept us now, we pray. Forgive us our transgression and save us at last, we ask. In Jesus' holy name, amen. Amen.
Service to a close. We'll take our hymnals and turn to hymn 618. Stand up for Jesus.
Stand up for Jesus, ye soldiers of the cross. Lift high his royal banner, it must not suffer loss. From victory unto victory, his army shall he lead, till every foe is vanquished, and Christ is Lord indeed. Stand up for Jesus,
Let us pray. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Peace in your home, peace in the church, peace at work, peace at school, but more so, peace with the Prince of Peace, we pray. Amen.
Please be seated. You'll be ushered out. Okay. 337.